Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Better Than I Found It podcast. I'm Mike McGraw, your host, and also the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest is Mikkel Beard, the head men's golf coach at Pepperdine University. Michael's team recently captured the school's second NCAA championship, defeating the best teams in the country in the process out at Greyhawk in Phoenix. Most media experts had said before that Pepperdine's best chance to win an NCAA title had come and gone with the cancellation of the 2020 spring championships due to COVID. Their great leader and best player, Saheth Theegala, had turned pro, and tradition-rich golf powers all across the country would be returning multiple super seniors due to the COVID fifth year offered by the NCAA. So join me in listening to Mikkel describe his players' resolve to prove people wrong and win anyway. Mikkel also describes his coaching style and things he's learned over the last 10 years. I learned a lot with this interview, and I know you'll enjoy the listening. Well, I have a very special guest today on Better Than I Found It, Mikkel Beard, the men's golf coach at Pepperdine and recently crowned national championship coach. Mikkel Beard, welcome.
Thanks, Coach McGraw. Pleasure to be on.
Yeah, this is great having you. I've been wanting to do this, and it's really timely that you had a really special thing happen here recently. So I'm excited to talk to you. You know, I was talking to Coach Mikkel this morning as we were kind of finishing the final preparations for this interview, and he said, "When did you first see or meet or know about Mikkel Beard?" I said, "Well, I knew about his dad a long time ago because I wouldn't call him a hero of mine as a boy, but he was a player I looked up to for sure when I was 10 or 11 and 12 because he was still playing fantastic golf. And but I met you at the 1998 Western Junior, and remember thinking, that's a good golf swing. That guy's going to be a good player. He should be in Stillwater. What the heck's he doing out there in California?" But no, I remember meeting you there, and you were a really, really good junior player. I remember that. And obviously, we competed a little against you for sure during your college years when you played at Pepperdine. And so I want you to talk a little bit about your experience with your teammates. We're going to eventually get around to that big elephant in the room, which is the national championship. I want to talk about that a lot. But let's talk about you and kind of how you developed into what would become a coach. And but you started out as a very competitive player.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mike, for having me. This is really neat for me, and get to be able to talk with you is always a joy of mine. So, yeah, I'd say so. I'd say before my college career, I started. My dad was a like you said, you looked up to. Well, I really looked up to him. He was my dad, and at that time he had played. Just started on the Champions Tour when I was about 9, and played until I was about 15 or 16. So I got to hang with him in the summers. He was the same age as Jack and Trevino, that era. So it was really neat for me. That's how I really got started, like excited, and then the passion that I had for the game was just being around these great players, and obviously my dad. So I think I was a little bit of a nowadays would be a late bloomer as far as, results go. I always was kind of obsessed with the game. And it was never, I just loved going to the range and playing all day, and just kind of being a golf rat. And my mom actually played the LPGA Tour as well. So it was really in our family, and it was just kind of a part of me and a part of us. So then fast forward to college, I kind of was deciding between USC and Pepperdine, and one of my very close and now best friends now was probably my closest friend then, was also looking at Pepperdine, and Jason Allred, and we kind of decided to go together and just had a blast. I mean, it was something that we didn't always talk about it, but when we narrowed him down, we both really liked him. We thought it'd be pretty neat to be able to share that experience together. And he was recruited much higher than me. He won the US Junior, and I think you tried to snag him over there in
Well, I will
Stillwater.
tell you that when I went to work for Mike Holder in the summer of '97, he recruited that whole summer. I mean, he was never
Yeah.
in Stillwater.
Yeah.
But the very first official visit we had that fall was Jason Allred. And I can remember driving him to the airport thinking, this is such a nice guy. I wish he was coming to Oklahoma State, but I know he's not. I just knew he wasn't at that point. But that was my first official visit and first drive to the airport with a player.
Yeah, no, he was probably, I'd say, the top 5 juniors in that class easily. So we just had a blast. I mean, it was something that I'll remember forever. It was very much we were best friends, but very competitive. We were actually roommates the first year and saw each other so much, and we wanted to beat each other so much. We realized this wasn't working out. So we actually split up. But
was it good for the friendship?
No, it was not. Again, I was pretty consumed by the game and always it was golf, golf, golf. So anyway, we had a great little run. We went to the national championship twice. It was our senior year. We finished 8th, and we felt like we had a good shot at actually at Ohio State. But after that, we were both best men in each other's weddings, and still have just a great friendship, and our families are very close as well. But yeah, I mean, I college golf for me was competitive. It was different. Not looking back on it as a player, now that I'm a coach, looking back on it as a player, it wasn't, the team part was great because they were good guys, but we never had the feeling that we were all playing for each other. So I know that a lot of this, now we talk about playing for each other and the team, and we didn't have that. We were really good, but looking back, if we had that, we really could have done some damage, I think. Did
you realize that when you became a coach, or did you kind of know it before that?
No, when I came as a coach, I didn't know that while we were there. We felt like, I mean, we were really close, but we just didn't have, we always looked at, when we got done with a round, we always looked at what place we individually finished, and we were competitive with each other and all good stuff, but we just missed that next step, or that next level that I've seen great teams have. And I've tried as a coach to kind of make that more of an importance, but I also know you can be really good the other way too, where you just kind of compete against each other. So anyway, yeah, that's how it was. I mean, I wouldn't do it over again. I mean, I would go back to Pepperdine as well again, and just had a great time. I met my wife there at Pepperdine. I thought she was a student, but she was working in an athletic department, and she had just graduated from Santa Barbara, and she wanted to work for an NFL team, and basically struck out, and this was the next best option. And so Pepperdine will always hold a special.
Or you were the next best option? What was it?
Pepperdine, but it'll always hold a special place in my heart for that reason as well.
That's great. Well, you as most guys do that play high level competitive golf as an amateur and college player, you had a dream to play professional golf. You had a model right there in the house, your dad, who had done it for so many years. And you mentioned your dad, and two things came to mind. One, I remember Kevin Tway when he played for me at Oklahoma State, and Bob had a really good pro career as well. And I just remember the reverence Kevin used in his voice when he talked about his dad. So when you said that, I felt the same way about my dad. He never played the tour. He played in the US Open and all that, but it's something about a dad that's really, really special. And then you got to chase the same dream that he lived. So
yeah, it was maybe quite different than most parents and son, parent, dad relationship as far as golf now, from what I see, guys on the junior level, even college and as a pro. My dad, when I turned pro after college, you're right, it was this is what I was going to do. There was no other if what happens, let's see what happens. This was just, it wasn't even, we never even talked about it. And then I never felt anything different. This is just what I was going to do is play on the PGA Tour. And so my dad never like pushed me. My dad never, the only thing he would say, he had this famous line when I was, and you'd appreciate this because you know these, David Gossett was the #1 player in junior college. He was really good, or yeah, anyway, he was the #1 player. He just won the USAM. And if there was any time my senior year in high school where I was just kind of sleeping in or whatever, he'd come in at 6:30 in the morning and he'd say, David Gossett's out there practicing, David he's out there getting better. He would just kind of give me a hard time for that. That's really the only time that he would ever kind of have any sort of push. And he was looking back, I wish he was a little bit more, kind of had a louder voice with me as a pro, because he wanted me to figure it out on my own. And he felt like that, he was there for me at an age when I really needed him. And he felt like that, as a pro, he wanted me to kind of learn my own, lessons and mistakes. Now, obviously I called him every time after a round and all that, but it wasn't like he traveled out there with me. He rarely even saw me play as a pro. It wasn't, we'd play and practice together, in between, but it wasn't like I had my mom and dad out there. I don't even know if they saw me play in very many pro events. So it was a little bit different than college. Sometimes looking back on, I wish he had a little bit louder voice for me when I was kind of struggling. But then at the same time, I appreciate the trust and belief that I would kind of find my way on my own. He always wanted me to do it on my own, because in the desert where we grew up, my dad was one of the few guys. It was somewhat of a small town, and it was all about him, and he wanted me to kind of make my own way. But yeah, I really as I turned pro and kind of felt like at that moment that, I needed to get my golf swing better, and I needed to hit the ball better if I was going to really kind of make it, or whatever that means, And I went down a rabbit hole for about 6 or 8 months of, trying to swing, maybe like use my body better and kind of biomechanic stuff, and it was never the way I learned the game. It wasn't, and I lost my way, and had to kind of figure some things out along the way. And by the time I was 6-7 years in, that was maybe 3 years in, I played on the Corn Ferry Tour 1 year, and I was on the Canadian Tour for 3 years. But I didn't have much success, and I was trying to be someone that I wasn't leading up to that point, and I looking back, I wish possibly that I gave it a little bit better shot of just being who I was. And maybe it wasn't, like the ball didn't fly like Tiger, and, didn't look like all those, but I still, knew my way around the course and knew my limitations and what I could do. And I looking back on it, I wish I had a little bit more of the old school, way in me as I turned pro. Because I'm kind of more that way as a coach now, because I kind of learned my mistake with that. And I never really got back to where, maybe the belief in myself that I once had as a college player and amateur player. I had moments, but it wasn't like 3-4 years worth. So after I played for 7 years, I started to teach a little bit, and we had a baby on the way. My wife and I had a baby on the way, and he was about 6 months old when we decided. I got a call from Coach Geiberger from Pepperdine. It said, "Hey, my assistant position's open," and I had been, like I said, teaching and trying to play, but still in my mind, I still felt like I was going to play the tour. It was just I was in kind of a down time, and I felt like, my wife says, maybe you should go talk to him. I'm like, no way, I'm not going to be coaching. I don't need to be coaching. I'm playing. And about 3 weeks went by, and somehow she kept kind of needling me a little bit, and I went and
wanted to pay bills,
called him up. Yeah, I called him up again, and then talked to him, and he kind of convinced me you can play and coach at the same time. And so I gave it a shot for that year.
And so how long did you work for John?
John, I was 1 year. So about 3 months into it, I had Andrew Putnam, who's on the tour now, Josh Anderson, who probably should be, and hopefully will be soon. But we had a nice little team. We made it to the national championship actually at Karsten Creek there in I don't what year would that have been? That would have been 2010 or 11. 11, yeah. And but I had a great group of guys, and about 3 months into it, Mike, I was just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, I had spent so much time kind of working on myself and trying to get myself better, and then all of a sudden it shifted to these 9 other guys, and it was like it was just so, you know, fulfilling. And so I was with John for a year, and then I went to Arizona State when Tim Mickelson got the head job there at Arizona State in that would have been 2011, maybe summer of 11. And so I was with Tim. We started. Well, it was awesome. I mean, with Pepperdine, I felt like the golf part was always something that I was comfortable with, you know, trying to help someone, trying to make them better, and understanding the guys and the people part. That was something that was easy for me. But when I went to Arizona State, I learned more of the if there is such a thing like the business side of it, you know, I mean, I call it business, that's not really even right, but more like the scholarships and understanding like putting a team together and how, like, you know,
nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts of it, you know, like when I was at Pepperdine, I just had the developing. I just kind of was me, and I can kind of enjoy that part. And then when I got to ASU, Tim, we basically had to rebuild it. I think we were 80th that first year. So for an ASU, that's, you know, pretty terrible. You know, I don't think they ever are outside the top 25. So there was pressure. I mean, it was neat. It was really neat for me. It was a lot of work. But Tim helped me see what hard work was, what in coaching hard work was. I knew what it was in golf, but I didn't know what the coaching, what that looked like coaching.
So I remember when I walked several fairways recruiting with you, and maybe at a couple tournaments. And I remember being in an airport with you and Tim, and it's the first time you got to witness me eat ice cream.
Yeah.
And I think you were a little scarred by that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You took down, like, I don't know, 3 scoops ice cream in a matter of maybe like 12 seconds. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to intimidate you. How'd I do?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I thought you were from another planet. I mean, that was unreal.
Well, but the truth is I was picking your brain, and you didn't know it at the time, but I knew you had the heart to be a coach. And I also knew you had the work ethic, but I didn't know if it was something you absolutely wanted to do, but I could tell you had a heart for human beings. And I thought, man, this guy, if this is really what he wants to do, this is going to be good. And I really believe, I'm not just saying that today. I said that after that first time we spent some time together. And so it was kind of gratifying when I saw that you got the head coaching job in January of 2013. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I didn't expect it happening. I mean, it was kind of out of nowhere. I had committed to being with Tim for the 3 or 4 years, and then this opened up, and the AD called me and he said, "Hey, would you consider coming back to Pepperdine?" And I felt terrible. It was mid-year. John Rahm was on the team, Max Rotliff, Matthias Schulberg, Alberto Sanchez, some really good guys. I mean, really, really good guys. And it was really hard for me. But an opportunity like that at Alma Mater, I couldn't pass up. And
I want to ask about that. What's that mean? Mike Holder coached at his alma mater. Alan Bratton is doing it now. I've known several coaches in different sports too that get to come back and coach their alma mater. That's got to be something really special.
Yeah. You know, like when a couple components to it. When I first came as a player, I felt Allred and I really felt like we could be great. They had just won the national championship a year before, 2 years before, a year and a half before. And we just felt like, gosh, we could be great. We could be number one. And we never quite put it together when we were played. And then when I came back, I think my experience there was so memorable and so significant to me that it made it even more special to come back and kind of do it all over again in a way. And now I had a chance to really kind of live that out again, like to be great. You know, how kind of had this vision or this picture of what it could be, and it's like now you get to try it again, and I think that's what was most exciting.
Okay, so that's really special that you said that. I like the way you said that. But now I'm going to get into some philosophy. I want to know, and you know, I don't expect you to tell every secret you've ever learned in coaching, but you and I both know everything you and I know, we learn from somebody else anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to know what your strategy was with recruiting, with culture of the program, you know, what your strategies were to kind of get this thing, you know, because a lot of people have rebuilds, and that's sort of where you were, a little bit of a rebuild.
Yeah.
And were there any uncertainties? Like, were you really scared of something? Was something bothering you? Any of that?
Yeah. 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 The great thing, again, going back to who I was as a player, I would get probably overly obsessive, overly like consumed with how to get better. And when I started here, I had Carl Smith, who was going to be the assistant, who was assistant before me, but I had someone to obsess and do that with. You know, he went to Pepperdine, and we both felt the same thing. We could be great. So, I mean, we just, you know, would dream and talk and dream and try to pick out guys that would be good fits and, you know, all that. And so it was great to have someone that was on the same level of level as far as what saw the same vision. So that was one thing. So then when we were ranked 155th when we started. Carl always remembers. He's like, we were 155 when we started. And so, because every year we get a little bit better, he's like, Michael, we're 80, you know, hey, we're getting better. We're 70, you know, and it was something that we took pride in. But for us, the school itself, I mean, I can't take or Carl, we can take all the credit. I mean, the school itself has a way of attracting a certain type of family and recruit. So, and I say that just because we don't have football, you know, it's different. It's not like USC, it's not like UCLA, you know, it's just different. And I just say those schools because they're close, but it's obviously not even close to Oklahoma State and any of those. It's just different. And so when we found, for us, I started the first year and a half or so, we went hard after Colin Morikawa, Gordon Neal. These kids are like top 10 players. And we just got shut down. I mean, we spent almost a year and a half of our life just, you know, going out and trying to get these kids. And it was, we kept getting hey, I like you guys, I like school, but you just don't have any good players, you know, and it was what they were, you know, that's what we kept hearing. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, it's not necessarily a secret, but I think that for me, there's a certain type of player I connect with, and I think I naturally probably didn't know it, but I kind of recruited that way. And my wife and kids are coming home.
That's okay. You've got a family. It's good.
Okay. So,
yeah, you were recruiting guys that fit your personality.
Yes. But then I realized that I couldn't have a team full of those guys. You know, that's not going to work. I can't. Right. They've got to have. It turned into, I got to make sure we have the right dynamic. You know, we can't have a team full of probably more quiet, reserved, introvert, hard worker, you know, that kind of thing. It just wouldn't. I mean, they'd be probably great to coach, but it just wouldn't work as a group. So, you know, we started, once we felt like we had one or two of those, we looked for someone that was maybe a little bit different, you know, maybe an extrovert, maybe someone that a cocky extrovert that, you know, could add something, you know, else to the group. So, but that's what we were thinking. But then all of a sudden we realized, what are we doing? We don't have, it's not like we can just pick and choose here, you know, like we're getting rejected left and right, you know, and Saheth was the first, one of the first ones that really kind of saw like this could be kind of cool here. And he was the first one. And then his friend Roy Coots kind of came along. And so as far as the recruiting goes, at first, we were just trying to get decent players that kind of fit the school that we felt like we could connect with. Because if they had kind of talent at all, we felt like we had a chance with helping them.
Mhm.
And so, but they had to fit with the school too. So that was the start. Then as we got a little bit better, we could possibly be a little bit more selective. But to be honest, Mike, we had a lot of kids that the UCLA and USC's didn't want. And I don't say that like, they had other guys that were maybe a little bit ahead of them. They were probably B, if you were to grade them, B recruits, but then what we had was, the cool thing was we had these guys all felt comfortable with each other. So even though they weren't like superstars as juniors, they all had respect for each other and they all could be themselves. And I think they were comfortable. We had this core group of guys with Saheth and Roy and then Clay Fiegler and Josh McCarthy. And those were our four guys that kind of, and then we built out the outside around, we had the other guys, we try to get a one here and there to kind of challenge them a little bit. But those four guys kind of felt like, hey, this is our team. And they took pride in that. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do a lot is I want them to take ownership in it. This isn't my team.
Well, I actually love that idea and I love that thought. And I think, so you had to start with what on the surface looked like B players or B plus players.
Yeah.
A B plus player with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and some good team chemistry, he's all of a sudden an A player a few years later. That's just the way it works. So you and a positive chip on the shoulder. I'm not talking about something that's negative. So obviously those guys took ownership of it. I mean, that's an amazing thing when that happens.
Yeah, no, it was neat to see that they had pride in what we were doing. They were interested in recruits. They were interested in, like I had them help pick the schedule that we were going to play in. I had them, I'd go to them on pretty much every decision we had. If they knew them, I wanted them in on it. I wanted them to feel a part of it. So then we were all kind of doing it together. It wasn't like me and Carl as like dictators telling them what to do. We were all doing it together.
That's really good. I love that. So that's what you did in recruiting. I sort of think that leads right into the culture part of it, because these kids kind of created the culture that you saw, or is that something that had happened that way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm a little bit more individual. I think I'm a little bit better with like a one-on-one. I'm not going to sit in a group of a team, we're going to have 8 guys and I'm going to give a huge, like rah-rah speech and they're going to come out like feeling like if they can run through a brick wall. That's not my style. I'm not gifted that way at all. I mean, I haven't even really tried, but I just know that that's not me. So what I've kind of, the way I went around it was just more of on an individual or a small group. Like maybe I would have Roy or I would have Saheth and Clay, and we'd have a little kind of get together and talk about, the team. Hey guys, I need some help here with this. I need, what do you guys think of this? Hey, he's struggling. What kind of like that. Again, to kind of loop them in. But I'd say the culture began. This is what I've always felt, and I learned this from my dad. When I was young, my dad had 2 questions for me when I got off the golf course. He said, what'd you learn? And did you have fun? Those are the 2 things. And it was never about what you shot. And so I kind of took that a little bit, further, is what I felt like he wasn't going to look at me any different if I shot 80 or 65. And so with so much of the juniors that, golf is that way. It's hard. You love your kids, and it's hard not to, be that way or be the other way. But I've tried to take that into our team, and I've if I can get to them where they know that they're loved and they can trust me first, then the golf part's easy. then I can go to Clay and say, Clay, you're driving it like a turd. We got to figure this out. Like what the heck, you're hitting snap hook after snap hook. And then he knows I'm not attacking him, so then he, because he already knows I'm on his side, I'm on his side. This isn't going to hurt his like self-image or so now we're just talking golf. We're just talking like we got two guys working on trying to get better at golf,
Yeah.
and so that's how, when I say individual, that's how I've kind of approached it. And now you get guys that all these guys know that these two coaches are all in with them. There's nothing to be, there's no things they have to prove, or there's no insecurities. It's just kind of, we're all together doing this thing, and that impacted our chemistry, because I think they know that no matter what, we really do care about them.
Yeah, that's a very great form of leadership right there, in my opinion, to sort of take your hands off the steering wheel and let the players kind of create a little bit of that, and you trust them, they feel that, and then the fact that you've allowed them to I don't know, be who they are, and you're who you are. You are very authentic. If you got up there and tried to give one of those speeches, I think they just laugh, because
I know.
So you're just a more calm, even keel guy than that. And so I think your culture is there. And I think the guys on this team that graduated and have gone on, of that core group you talked about, I think your younger kids can look up to that. That's great. I asked the question earlier we didn't get to. I want to get to it.
Okay.
Insecurities, uncertainties, things that you, after 8 years now, is there anything you've gone like, oh man, that was harder than I thought it would be, or anything that surprised you that way, or that you're uncertain about?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for me right now to be what's fresh in my mind, which is this year. But maybe are you referring to like recruiting, or actually
just
like
coaching? You're just being a head coach, just.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So when I first started, I don't know if I was ready to be a head coach. I don't know. I mean, I was 2.5 years in basically, and now I'm going to be a head coach. I mean, so I had guys that I would call, you were one of them. Tim Mickelson was one. And because as an assistant, you think you're making decisions, right? But you always have that head coach as backup. I could come in and say, Tim, this is what this guy, we're going to get this guy, and this is why. And but then you kind of take that safety net away, and now you're making the decisions. It's almost like you, not that you question, you just want to make sure it's the right one. So I mean, there was multiple times or a qualifying situation, or like, how do you do this, how do you do that? And so Tim was one, you were one, Ryan Hibble was one, where I could, just kind of pick your guys' brain. And a lot of it was on recruiting and whatnot. But a specific situation, I'd say, well, just like I said, this year, I just remember multiple times where I was there were a couple guys that maybe weren't at the level of what we were trying to do when we first started. And that was the hardest thing for me. Like, I really cared about these guys, but it just wasn't, they weren't going to help us get where we need to go. And that was hard. But this year was probably the most difficult year for us. I shouldn't say doubt, it was this process of trying to figure out who was going to play. How do you make it fair, where, you want them to earn it, but it needs to be, trying to make it fair, trying to make it where we bring the best team. I mean, that was something that wore on me, wore on Blaine, and we had Chris Zambry this year as well. And that was something that constantly, I have a hard time making decisions anyway. And now you get in and you get this, there's so many different ways. Everyone could have a case on why they should be playing or and all that. And it was just hard. It was hard all year.
Well, and I think, how old are you now?
41.
Yeah, you're 41. Let's say you're going to coach another 25 years. Maybe that'd be a nice goal.
Yeah.
You're going to have that feeling a lot. It's going to happen because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and you want to be fair to everybody, but you've got to do what's best for the team. It's a hard, it's a juggling act. It's not always that easy. So that looks like that's maybe one of the harder things you've had to deal with.
I for sure. I will say going back real quick, a funny story is when we had Saheth, his first tournament. So this was actually one that this would have been my second full year coaching. And we get this kid, he comes in, we have a qualifier, and he finishes 6th in the qualifier. And we all know he's like the best player coming in. And I go to my assistant at the time, I said, are we really not going to take Saheth to the first tournament? I mean, are we really not going to do this? And we decided we weren't going to take him. He skipped it. He didn't make the first tournament at which was Minnesota's event. And we go in there, and I think we laid an egg. We didn't play very well. and then we get out to the next tournament, which is Wake Forest event, and he qualified for that one. And it was kind of surprising for him. I mean, it was surprising for him to like, I got to go qualify. You know, like he knew he was the best player. Now he didn't come in arrogant at all. It was just like he didn't like play in tournament. I'm gonna go play. You know, I don't have to qualify. And so that shocked him a little bit. And then we go to Wake, and he's our 5 guy. And we haven't even seen him play in a tournament yet with us. So we don't know what's going to happen today. Yeah, this morning. So we get out there, and he can't eat breakfast. Okay. He's our 5 guy. He can't eat breakfast. He's just like big old plate of food, didn't eat anything. So then he just leaves. He goes to the range, starts warming up. And he's like literally shanking balls in the range before he goes. Okay. And to the point where some of the coaches were watching is like, ooh, this guy's going to have a tough day kind of thing. So then Armin goes out and starts watching him, and our assistant at the time, my assistant at the time, and he's like, Michael, Saheth's in a bad way right now. He's like, he's got to be nervous. He can't hit the club face. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to come out, check this out. So he stopped. He was done hitting balls, and now he's on the chipping green, and he's like chunking chips, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen here? So we get on this first hole, and he's the first one, like as our 5 guy, he's our first one, and he's doing all these like stretches. He's doing these weird hit moves, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And it's a hole where you can hit a driver down this little neck. It's a par 5, or you can lay back with a hybrid or something. And he's got an iron out. You know, I'm thinking he can barely even, he's afraid, you know, so nervous, hasn't eaten, all this kind of stuff. So he's swinging left-handed, trying to loosen up his body, and he goes out, he pulls out iron, and then they call his name. Okay, first one offside, Tagala, puts the iron away, pulls driver out, and plays this like 15-yard cut right in this little neck of the fairway, and has 6 iron on the green and makes birdie. So here we are, like all worked up about, you know, here's our guy that we recruited. Can he even handle the pressure? You know, all this kind of stuff. And then he just said,
you know, he's my new favorite player because he was doing that to stress you out. That's why he was doing it.
Yes.
No, I get it. I've seen that too. And you think, how can this kid play well today? And boom, there it is.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Ended up being a #1 player in college, senior year.
So I was going to ask these questions now, but I think I'm gonna hold those off for later.
Okay.
So we get you kind of that core group, and you guys build a synergy. You have a culture. You guys are moving on, and we know you had, if not the best team, one of the best teams in the country last year, and then COVID hit, and that story's been told many times, so we don't have to retell it. But you didn't get to finish the deal, and Saheth turns pro, and so he's going to be a professional. So on the surface, it looks like your time has come and gone, and that's what the media was saying, you know, oh, that was a great run, you know, good luck. So I want to know truly what you did as a coach to get those guys to understand those people don't believe in you, but we believe in us, or something like that. Surely something like that.
Yeah. The first, well, first you have to know that all our guys all of them are extremely competitive. Somehow we lucked out this year. We had 9 guys, and they just could not stand to lose. And so the first meeting of the year we had, that's exactly what I said. I said, everyone has already written us off as last year was our year. I mean, I said, you wouldn't believe the coaches that I've talked to that says, man, they feel so sorry for us because we had our one chance and it was last year. And I built it up a little bit more than that, you know, just kind of said,
job.
You know, you wouldn't believe the stuff they're talking about us, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, a couple of them like, what, you know, like wanted me to repeat it, and it's like, wait, say that again, and then we start talking about how we felt like we were better than we were last year. And certain players, I kind of went in and kind of shared with certain players and why I thought they were better. And then they kind of left that day thinking like, this is time for us to prove it this year, is that we don't, because I think I said something like, everyone thought that we kind of basically rode our one player, our horse. And he's gone now. And basically that's been the talk, is like, well, you were good because you had that one guy. So, somehow that registered with them. I mean, I don't want to say that it was a daily thing. We said, hey, this, you should have heard this guy, but it was somehow that registered. What really happened, in my opinion, was now we lose our leader. Okay. And we have, no, everyone's looking around who's going to be the next guy. And I think at the beginning, they might have felt like, William Mao had he was a first team All-American as a freshman, and maybe expected or assumed that would happen. And then Dylan Menante tied for first in our first tournament. They're like, whoa, and now they're thinking, well, wait a minute here. And then we had another Josh McCarthy also tied. They both tied for our first tournament, and they're in a playoff. So now all of a sudden we're thinking Mao's going to go out there and win by 10 and be our guy. And now they're looking around and saying, wait a minute, maybe Dylan, maybe Josh. And the other guy's like, wait a minute, I can be the guy, So everyone starts being the guy, trying to be the guy. And they just keep going at each other. At the same time, we don't have a leader personality wise. We didn't have a leader this year. It wasn't, Saath was our leader. Saath was the guy. You're at a dinner table and we get done with a round, and there were certain things that were never said when Saath was around, because he would probably give you a look and like somehow like a look that says, are you stupid? Are you an idiot? Like, what the heck? Winners don't talk like that, So like everyone just kind of, without even knowing it, it was all, without even knowing it, just kind of, and certain things kind of didn't talk about their players and stuff like that. Well, now we have that. There's no senior. There's no, like, at least at the beginning, didn't feel like we had that leader. So what happened was we have that mix of, we have to prove that, hey, we're just as good as we were last year, if not better. And then you have individually, the guys are all trying to beat each other, and no one has stepped up really yet. And what happened was Dylan stepped up, and I think everyone was kind of like, wait a minute, I can beat Dylan, I can. And then they started to keep going and going and going. Looking back, I think Dylan was our number one player this year. And I think that was part of it, Mike. Actually, a lot of it is just that we didn't have one guy. Every week it could have been either one of the five guys.
Some people would say, well, that was the players who did it. Who cares? That's what you want as a coach, is for those players to take ownership of the team, and they did it. And oh, by the way, you still get some credit for it because you recruited every one of those players.
Yeah.
So, it's great when it all comes together like that. It's not, I mean, that doesn't have to happen. It's not like that's a given. And it did happen for you guys this year, and that's special.
No, and that's just to add on to it. We were monitoring the whole thing. It wasn't like we could see it happening. And if it got out of line, or if it wasn't the way we wanted it, then we were going to kind of somehow find a way to, and I'm not talking about who's playing, I'm talking about the competitiveness and the edge, to make sure we still had it. We always kind of gave them little jabs here and there to remind them that they're good, but they're not that good,
Well, I mean, whatever you did, a combination of, the media did say that. You may have embellished it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the truth is that was being said. That was their year, and it's a shame because, but the two of you and Blaine, and by the way, you hit the lottery with Blaine, amazing coach.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, he is the man. But it's great when it all comes together. That doesn't always happen. And so really happy for you that it did. And so now that brings us to the national championship. Let's talk a little bit about that week. We don't have to do all the details, but one detail that kind of struck out to me was Joe Highsmith, who played very well in match play, was not even in the lineup coming into the tournament. So explain that. And I know you already said earlier you had 9 competitive players.
Yeah.
So that's a rough deal. That was probably pretty tough to pick the team.
Yeah, it pretty much kind of capped off our whole year. What happened at nationals was basically our whole year. in 1 week. So we had another, we'll just start with the 6 that we had. So at regionals, Dylan had his worst tournament of the year. He played poorly, and then Joe as well. I think Joe finished 35th or so, or 37th, and that was his worst tournament of the year. So it shows you how good a year he had. I mean, it wasn't having a bad year. And so he had just won at Pasatiempo, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks earlier, but so on TV. And anyway, so now we have some time in between. We barely get through regional. We basically finished 4th, and maybe made it by 6 or 8 or 9 shots, but it felt like very close. And so we get home and we watched Dylan and Joe play, and Joe didn't have his stuff the last 2 days, and Dylan never really, he was struggling the whole tournament, but he had such a good year. He really, it was hard to really give it a ton of weight, but we felt like, why don't we put basically our number 1 and 2 player, Dylan was our number 1 and Joe's our number 2. And for most of the spring there. And then why don't we put them in a little 2-round, whatever we want to call it, qualifier, evaluation, just 2-round where we see some scores, just with RJ, who's been our 6th guy. So who had been playing really nice at home. I mean, basically averaging 67. So let's just put him in a 2-rounder. We played Sherwood and Riviera. So there's like 2 good courses, you can't really fake it on either one of them. So what happened was Joe and Dylan tied, and they shot like 1 or 2 over for the 2 days. And RJ shot like 9 under, 10 under. Beat him by 11. I think it beat him by 11. I think he shot 9 under, beat him, and they were 2 over. So to us, we looked at it as, regardless, we're going to take these 6 guys and we're going to play 6 guys. So we feel like within our little group, we had the best 6 guys in the country. That's what we felt like. So why don't we use that as an advantage? So RJ had literally been shooting 67s, and he came out and so we ended up telling Joe that it was a really hard decision, but we ended up telling Joe, we played Dylan and told Joe like the morning of the practice round. We didn't even know until the morning of the practice round, because we had just finished this qualifier like on a Tuesday, or maybe Tuesday, and we left Wednesday for the tournament. So the Thursday morning we decided, okay, Dylan's going to play, RJ's going to play the first round, and Joe, the first round you're not going to play. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I mean, me and Blaine and Joe were sitting there together. We just it was a tough deal for us and for Joe. I mean, he just won a tournament 4 weeks ago, and so I said, Joe, you have to trust me on this. You're going to help us win the national championship this week. You're going to help us win. And he's not hearing that stuff. All he hears, I'm not playing, So, so we talked about 30 minutes and kind of went off our deal, did our practice round. Joe was awesome in the practice round. He was engaged. It was great. I mean, I was so proud of how he handled it. We do our practice round. We go out first round, and we tell all the guys, hey, this is what we're doing. Playing 6. We're going to monitor as we go. It's how we're going to, just look at the scores as we go. And, but just go play your heart out. We're going to get this thing the best run we've got. And so RJ plays poorly the first day, hit some desert balls and unplayables, and didn't have his game that he had the 2 weeks that we've been watching leading up to it, because he had already shot 13 under 2 weeks before that at home. So I think he shot 6 over, and I said, Joe, you're in. Okay. So Joe comes in and he shoots 72, I think, but played nicely. And then again, I could feel the tense. I can feel there's some, like, it's just tense with the guys. And I still like probably a little bit of, am I going to get pulled out? And I mean, I have to, what do I have to shoot to stay in? But this is this was our whole year. This wasn't just this week. This was something that they were used to at home all the time. I mean, it was, our qualifying was more, more competitive, and like they were on tilt the whole time, more than the tournaments, and so this was really not that, crazy for them to be this way. Now, the fact that it's a national championship and have to do it, that makes it a little tougher, but it wasn't like this is the first time they've had to do that. So we get out there, and Joe shoots 78 the first. So it's really tense. I could just feel it, like we're not playing together as a team. And with Joe shoots 78 the third round, and we had a little talk, and we had a 3-hour conversation that afternoon, myself and Joe, and then we went out to the putting green at 8:30 at night at Greyhawk in the dark, and we went out there for 45 minutes and just talked about life, golf, putting, everything. And Clay went with us, and it was actually ended up being like an hour. And we played Joe the next day, and that was the moment I felt like that the guys said, okay, this is our 5. Now let's go. We're going to play as a group, and we're going to go, because they're probably thinking, well, is RJ going to go back in? Is it, like still up in the air? And I think there was this sense of like, okay, this is our team, let's go, and we had a talk with them that morning, just talking about playing for each other, because the whole year it had been fighting against each other. And now we're at the last tournament, and they kind of were doing it the first 3 days. And then we get the morning of the final round, of the 4th round, and we talk, okay, let's switch it. Now we're playing for each other. This is all we got. Clay's a 5th-year senior. You guys, we got to lay it all out there. And just give everything you got. And then from then on, and we shot 9 under. Actually, we shot 10 under, but Mouse signed this wrong scorecard. We shot 9 under, and I think they felt like, and we had a heck of a round, and I think they felt like it was time to do some damage after that. We just kind of rode that momentum. But that's the story at Nationals. But that's basically how our season went all year.
Well, and what makes that interesting is it wasn't something out of the norm. It was something this team had experienced all year long. Fighting for your spot, spot. When it came right down to it, team meant more to them. We got to be a team. And when I saw that 9 under you guys posted, I was like, oh my gosh, that team's ready to play some good. And we could go the detail by detail by detail.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get too far.
No. I wanted that detail because I knew there had been some consternation. I knew it wasn't perfect.
No, it wasn't.
And but the match play looked pretty perfect to me. You guys really played well during the match play. And what a couple things struck me. One, I knew Ryan Hibble had been a mentor for you when you were a young head coach, and so I thought that was really special that he came up to you after the match. And I think what you guys did with and for Chris Zambri and what he did for you guys this year is one of the most special things in college golf in a long time. Just really, really cool. Chris is a great guy, and I just want you to know you're a rock star for giving him that opportunity, and he's a rock star for the way he handled it. It was just an amazing, amazing year. So hats off to you guys.
Yeah, no. Both of those was really special. The Chris, he's a close friend, and it's actually today is his daughter's birthday.
Okay.
So she would have been 18 today, and Chris and I have always been fairly close, but we've kind of reached a new level with the accident, and we just care so much for their family, and him and his wife Kim, and when he didn't get rehired at USC, we talked. I reached out to him. I said, hey, I don't know how you're going to take this, but I don't know what you're doing until you get something. I'd love for you to come on board as our volunteer. And like I said, I didn't know if he'd be like, I don't know how he'd react. And he reacted with, are you kidding me? I would love to, let's go, And so he was all in with it. Every practice we could have, or he could make, he was there. I mean, it felt like he was there 4 days a week. It probably wasn't. It was probably, some days were 2 days a week, but he helped us so much with, Zambri's probably a little on one side, I'm on the other side, and Blaine's probably right in the middle. And I felt like we had a really special kind of combo of coaches when it was making decisions to helping the guys. Some guys connected with Chris, some guys didn't. Some guys connected more with Chris than me, and a lot of stuff that we did this year. Just kind of the technical part it would be more of like we did some of these tests that he always does that he's made up at USC. He's really helped with our putting, and just to not go into too much detail other than that our guys have a much more much bigger awareness of speed, and the faster that we played, the faster the greens got. We hung in there, and I'm not even saying not even just at the finals, but other courses. When we played fast greens, it was now the whole year. He would have them basically keep their stats, but not strokes gained. It would be strokes gained putting, but mostly it would be speed. He had a way to calculate the speed, and every time he would just hammer the guys. I need your putting, need your putting, need your putting, and he would calculate the speed every round we played, not just tournaments, practice. Like qualifying every round. So they got in a habit where they had to think about speed, and I think it had to have. Even if it helped one of our guys one shot, it was worth it. But I know it was way more than that. But Chris, I called him. I said, "Hey, I want you to come to regionals with us." And he's like, because he hadn't really gone to a tournament. And he said, "Okay." And then he got there, and he was all in with it. He's following our guys. Then we get to finals. I said, "You're coming to finals?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "We got to get Kim to come too." So his wife flew over with my wife and Blaine's wife on Friday morning. Chris went over with the team with us, and I can't even tell you how he helped Blaine. Blaine and I. It was. We got done after the fourth round, and we had like 4 holes left. He said, "Hey, we're playing Florida State. We got to get ready for the matchups." I said, "Chris, I'm not ready to doing this. My head's not there. I mean, I'm not even. We've never even made match play. Here we are. I'm trying to wrap my head around us even getting in the final 8." I said, "Can you go work on that, please?" And he runs. He's like, "I got it." So he went in, and he had like 30 minutes, and he's looking at looking at all the other players, kind of like personalities and kind of what kind of players they are, and coming up with all these algorithms on who should play with who. And we get in after we're celebrating, we get to match play, and we get in, and we got like 15 minutes to to get ready for this. And the only other time I had experience doing this was at Eastlake Cup, and it was new to me then, and even now we're doing it for the real deal here, and it was awesome to have Chris. And we had a little system on how we did it and how luckily we were always the higher seed, so we got to put up first, and we did that all 3 times. But every time I had a little sheet that we were looking at where Chris had gone back and done all this research on each guy and how it would work. And it was just so neat to have that, and so like behind the scenes that no one would ever know, really. Like he was awesome. He was awesome, and it was like he was coaching. It wasn't he was a volunteer.
Last fall at the Big 12 Match Play Championship, my assistant Mikkel did the same thing, and I just stepped aside.
Yeah.
Because we had tried it one way. Ryan Blagg and I had a different way, or basically our way. And Mikkel said he had an idea, and I let him do it, and it was brilliant. And it just shows you sometimes if a really good, strong quality of a head coach is to be humble enough to say, "Okay, you've got a great idea. We're using it."
Yeah.
I think that's what you did with Chris. And you gave him the respect of being a coach he had been a coach for 15 years. And honestly, been one of the most successful coaches in the country. And I applaud you for doing that. And, you used his best qualities to help make your team better.
We had a special year, and he was huge in that, and Blaine too. I mean, here comes Blaine. We've been doing this together for 3 years now, and now what we're going to bring in a coach that has more experience than both of us combined. How's this going to go over? Like people on the outside may say, "Well, Chris is going to come in and take over," and and I don't know. It wasn't. No one had any egos, and we enjoyed just trying to make our guys better, and everyone could kind of voice their opinion, and I could say, "You know what, I don't like that," and they could say, "You know what, I don't like that." It was great. It was really neat and open, and then to have Hibbs there at the end. I mean, that was I mean, he's been so helpful for me. I gave him a hug and I said, I didn't know what to say because I know he was obviously disappointed if they didn't win. And I just said, I know this isn't the time, but I just want to thank you for all that you've done, you know, for me. And he was awesome. He's always been great to me. And the other day I called him for something else and he says, you know, you beat us last time. I'm starting to charge you. I'm gonna start charging for this.
Yeah, I think that's what's special about our profession. I really do. You know, I think coaches are more willing now than ever to give of their time. You know, if it's an honor when somebody asks you, you know, advice or asks you for help. That's a privilege and an honor, and you should take it as such. And I know Ryan has never held back anything, and I know he's helped you a bunch, which is great. But again, what you guys did with Chris and what Chris did for you was an amazing story. There was one other moment that I know during the award ceremony where you were very emotional. And I might get emotional here too, because I remember when I won a national championship as a head coach in 2006, my dad was still alive, like your dad is still alive. But my mom was not, so she wasn't there to see it. And I always remember that was the one regret, that she hadn't been able to see it. So that was a special moment for me to hear you talk about your mother with so much love in your voice. That was great.
Yeah, that was I didn't think he was going to go there. I was ready for the team, and I pretty much butchered that whole interview, but because I had the team and everyone else in mind, and then he hit me with my dad, and then my mom popped into my head, you know, and it was really it was emotional, and it always will be. My mom passed away when I was just after college, when I was 26, but she was the glue of our family, and my dad helped me with golf. But my mom, she was the one that I learned how to I don't know how to say this, but she understood people better than anyone. You could have 3 minutes with her and you just feel like you guys are, I mean, she's looking right through you, you know, like you guys are connected, you know, and she was that way. We did a lot together. My dad was playing on the Champions Tour for 6 years when we were younger. So it was my mom and my dad. It was my mom and my sister and I. You know, like that, us three. You know, my dad was gone. He'd be gone 6 weeks at a time. So you know, it was hard. It was hard, and so to kind of, she never saw me coaching. You know, like she just knew me as a player. So that kind of just hit me there, that I know this whole time that she would love to do this. She would love to do this. And I know she would love to be a part of all the stories and all that kind of stuff. And to do this as a coach was something that I've always felt like that was possible. But then for it to actually happen and have my dad there and my sister there and my wife and kids, it all just kind of hit me. And then the fact that my mom, you know, was the one that really I probably learned the most out of anyone. I had this interview one time, and I won't say what school it was, but the head AD, was a really big school, and the head AD called. He says, "Where'd you learn who's been the most impactful to you as in your coaching career?" And I told him my mom. Not something that he's going to want to hear. He wants to hear some, you know, Mike Holder and Mike McGraw, you know. They all know that, guys. But I said, my mom. That's probably why I didn't get the job. But anyway, I didn't really mean that. I really meant that. You know, this was, my mom's the one. I mean, just the relational part is where I kind of what I learned from her. And anyway, tough.
She was there at that award ceremony.
Yeah.
She was there. So
yeah. Well, thanks for saying that.
You bet. Well, you know, your dad, I mentioned this to you earlier. Your dad obviously was a really good player. And when I was taking up the game, he was one of the best players in the game. And I bought his book, the book he wrote, just kind of a diary of a year on the PGA Tour. I still have that book. And then when he got on the Champions Tour, he wrote a book called Making the Turn. And you know as well as I do that the publisher messed up and put the wrong dust jacket on there, put a picture of Tommy Aaron.
Yeah.
I actually have a copy of the incorrect dust jacket with Tommy Aaron on there instead of your dad. I should get your dad to sign that for me.
Yeah, well, no, that's funny. I do remember that.
Do you have a copy of the correct one or incorrect?
I'm sure both somewhere. I think he's got it. My dad, I mean, when I was younger, we had these things at the Masters. You'd go and you make an eagle, and you get these little like
Goblets.
goblets deal.
Yep.
And I didn't really know what they, how cool they were, but we just used them like to like drink out of and stuff. And basically they would break. And all of a sudden, went through all the goblets. He made an eagle on every par five. And so we had these, four of these steals. And he doesn't really even, we don't have any like memorabilia or even like that. He probably like, oh, they screwed this thing up, and like that doesn't mean much.
You're telling me you broke the goblets from the Masters?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do two things to finish on here. We're going to do a speed round that I haven't prepared you for. That
Okay.
kind of different, nothing major. We do a speed round occasion, but I do want to ask a couple of questions. What advice do you have for young coaches? You're only 41, so you're still a fairly young head coach, but you're not like a 26 or 7-year-old kid. And there's a lot of young, great coaches in the business today. And you've said, as well as you've told me, a lot of coaches mentored you when you were just getting in and that type of thing. So it's like, what is the best piece of advice you'd give for a young coach that you think would probably help just about any young coach?
Yeah. Well, you'd hope that if you're coaching, you probably had some sort of playing experience. Not all do, but you'd probably at some level they know the game. I have two things. One is I would be careful with what you read in a book. Like when you read How to Be a Coach, don't just throw that out. Don't even go down that road. I think that there's like instincts and intuition that you have maybe from when you played, or things that you learn from other coaches. Like there's going to be things that you like from. There's things that I like that you do, Mike, and there's things that I don't. So I can pick and choose from all these great coaches, and kind of formulate kind of my own or our own kind of way of doing things, and then match it up to what your instincts and intuition is, and how you were or are as a player too. So to me, that's how I would look at it. I wouldn't necessarily look at one coach and say that, they're successful and that's how you got to do it. I don't believe in that. I think that you can learn from those people, but you still have to have your own kind of gut instincts on certain things. So don't be afraid to listen, but don't also be afraid to like you got to have your own filter. Like when you're a player and you get all these people that help you with your swings, you got to be able to filter what will work or not. One quick story with John Rahm. I was with John Rahm as a freshman, and he'd come up and say, Coach, I can't hit the ball. Give me something, and I'd tell him, well, I don't know, slow your backswing down or something. No, that's not going to work. Give me something else. He knew like I'm only gonna try what I know that's going to work under the heat, under the gun. And so be that way as a coach too. You don't have to just because someone tells you something doesn't necessarily mean it's right, or just because they've had success doesn't mean it's right for you or the school that you're at. That's a whole nother thing. But that's what I would do, is try to find your place that you can be you at that school, and also just kind of have that intuition and trust that. But you
said there were two things.
Yeah, I know. There was one other thing I was going to tell you, and I got sidetracked. That's all I got right now.
Okay, no, that was actually great advice. I love that. I've always believed in being authentic, and probably the most challenging thing for me when I took over from Mike Holder was to not try to be that icon that he was. I just had to be Mike McGraw. And I probably had a lot of his qualities or his mannerisms or whatever whether I knew it or not, I probably did, but I tried very consciously to be myself. And I tried to take the best things he did and use them. And one of the best things he ever taught me was the power of confrontation. And it's not always negative. Confrontation is just clearing the air, and he taught me about that. The air was always clear when I was around Mike. I never had to wonder. So I took that from him, and I've tried to do that as a coach. Just be real and honest and be upfront and forward with people, and this is the way it is. So I agree with you completely. Take what you know will work for you.
I just remember my number 2.
Perfect.
And this is something that I probably should have learned from my wife, but it took actually Chris Ambry to really help me see it. And that is, you can work so hard at this. You know, you can spend, I mean, you can go all in, which we have done, and maybe not get everything, not get as much out of it as you'd hoped. But I think that what Chris came on, Chris was at USC for 14 years, and then he you know, then he wasn't coaching, and then he came on to help us, and he was at practice, and he was, and this a lot, and so we got a lot of like really, really nice talks. And he actually told me this after the accident, after his daughter had passed. He said, Michael, it's really awesome what you guys have done with this program. I mean, 95% of it is just insane. It's ridiculous how great. I'm so happy for you. This is like, there's a reason why you guys are really good. You guys put so much into these guys. I mean, it's really cool, but you got to be careful for that. There's 5% of it there that's maybe isn't so good. And that is like you're missing opportunities to be with your family, you know. And there's times that, you know, your boys may have a football game that you're going to miss, and you're taking the guys on a trip on a weekend or something, you know, and it's great. You know, you're great with these guys and it's awesome, but like, don't forget your family too. And I think that was something, as a coach, I just felt like I had a job to do, as an assistant, and even as a head coach, and getting the program to a certain level. And it was like, we're going to do that. And you lose sight of that sometimes. And it just really hit me when Chris because I respect him so much, and he saw us now, like he saw us in the middle of it. It wasn't like you and I, and we're recruiting, and I see you for, you know, a day, and we have dinner, and then, you know, I'll see you next week. And, you know, like he was in the middle of it with us. And that's something that really hit me. It was right before regionals, and it just kind of like put it into perspective for me. And I don't know how, that's not necessarily a young coach thing, but maybe a young head coach thing, when you're having a family and you're doing all this stuff, and you're fired up about your job, and you're fired up about all the guys and getting better and all this kind of stuff. And it's really good. It's really good. I mean, it's really cool. And but there's that, you know, that family part, that my boys are 9 and 11 right now, you know, and this is an awesome time for them and for us as a family. And it just kind of hit me there that, you know, I need to make sure that I'm being the best dad I can be too, and the best husband. So those are the two things.
Yeah, that's incredible advice from him, and great perspective. And so 9 and 11, when are you going to allow me to come in from home recruiting visits with those boys?
Well, no.
That's not happening. Okay. All right.
No.
We'll move on. Okay. Speed round. Let's get on to the speed round. You ready for this?
Right. I don't know. What is a speed round?
Oh, it's just, I'm going to ask some questions. You just give me the first answer that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Got it? Ready? Here we go. There's only about 10 questions. All right. Chick-fil-A or Chipotle?
Chick-fil-A.
Okay. Shawshank Redemption or Remember the Titans?
Ooh. Gosh, those are both. Remember the Titans.
Good answer. Hey, favorite pastime with Clark and Graham? It could be golf, but what is your favorite pastime with them?
Throwing the football in the yard, is that one? Yeah, throwing the football. One playing defense, one playing offense, and I'm the quarterback. Yeah, that's probably our most fun.
Can you throw a ball?
Can I throw a ball?
I just asked the question. It's okay.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
When do I? Okay, I already asked that question. Steak or fish? Steak or fish?
Wait, I didn't hear it. What?
Steak or fish?
What was the first thing
Steak.
you said? Steak. Oh, steak. Oh, steak. Yeah, absolutely steak. Yeah.
I don't know. You look out at an ocean every day and you don't want fish? What's wrong with you?
Oh, man. Steak.
Favorite book?
You what?
Favorite book?
Oh, keep cutting out. Well, I just kind of read it recently. Inside Out Coaching. I think that's called Inside Out. Yeah.
Joe Ehrman. Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. What year did your dad lead the PGA Tour in money winnings?
1969.
Beautiful. Dream foursome, you and 3 others. Who are they going to be?
Oh, well, my dad.
Okay.
If my mom was alive, I'd put my mom in there.
Yeah, that's a dream. I mean, yeah, your mom can play in this group. Who else?
Okay. Allred.
Allred. He's a good guy to put in that group. Good player. Played the tour for a while. Did. Last question. Best investment you've made under $100 in the game of golf?
What question is that?
I stumped you. It's my assistant coach told me to add that question about 7 podcasts.
Mikkel, what is it?
Mikkel, jump on here right now. Mikkel?
I don't know, Coach. Have you heard of a putting tutor? Maybe, I don't know, alignment sticks.
Man, I'm old. We're old school, man. We don't do any of that stuff.
You like to wash your clubs? Like, what about a club brush? I don't know.
Okay. I mean, you just attacked my assistant coach because he thought we had a great question. And you're the first guy that hasn't answered it. Okay, no problem. Listen,
sorry, Mikkel.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. You were amazing. You gave really a lot of good insight and wisdom. I appreciate that. And second of all, I want to congratulate you on an amazing accomplishment. You're a national championship coach. And honestly, it may happen 10 more times and it may never happen again, but it did happen. That's an amazing, amazing day of golf. So congratulations for that. And I just look forward to getting on the road and seeing you out there recruiting.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Enjoyed hanging with you.